I love fried rice. It's one of those dishes that you can use whatever's left over in your fridge and make a whole meal out of it. We often have leftover rice in the fridge, and it's perfect for making fried rice because it's dry and cold and you want that rice to soak in all the flavors that you're going to add. And the best part is that it is cheap. You can make a whole dish of fried rice to feed a family of 2, 3, or 4 for less than $5. And if you need more, you can easily add more rice or more eggs to make a more substantial dish, or you can even change up the protein, use chicken and pork, or even Spam instead of the beef or shrimp that I have in the following recipes. Fried rice is simple and cost-effective. Here are 4 fantastic ways to enjoy fried rice, and all these recipes will be in my new cookbook coming out very soon. We've got some bacon, we've got some eggs, and we have leftover rice. It just screams, make fried rice. With all fried rice recipes, it is really important to get all of your ingredients ready to go because the cooking part of it is actually really fast and really simple. I'm going to start with half of an onion. And the smaller you cut up your onion, the faster it's going to cook. So I'm going to try to cut this into little pieces, minced, I guess, or just chopped, whatever you guys like. I find that chopped is better for the mouthfeel when everything's about the same size. I'm also using 2 green onions, and I'm going to chop up the white part so that I can cook it with the other onion because I like this part cooked more, and the dark green parts I'm just going to use as garnish. 2 cloves of garlic that I'm just going to chop up because, well, there's not much else going on. If you don't want to chop it up, you can always run it through a garlic press. Just chopping this up into, I guess, minced texture. And if you don't want to use garlic, you don't have to use garlic. Actually, you don't have to use any of the aromatics in here if you don't want to. It'll still be a delicious fried rice. I have a lot of fried rice recipes actually in my cookbook, Chinese Home Style. If you want to check those out, there are quite a few different flavor profiles in there. We've got like a pineapple fried rice. We have my usual simple fried rice using Chinese sausages. Yeah, just check it out. You know, I want to say just use 8 slices of bacon, but really, why stop at 8? There's only 11 slices in here. I counted earlier. I'm just going to use the whole thing. You can just use 8 slices if you want, but why keep 3 slices of bacon in the fridge? That makes no sense to me.
You know, because...
Okay, so I'm just going to slice this up. So a package of bacon here is probably about 3/4 pound. I'm using 4 eggs. And I'm going to lightly beat the eggs. And that's it. Now I'm gonna go get my wok and get started. Okay, setting my wok on medium-high heat. And if you don't have a wok, you can always use a large frying pan to do the exact same thing. I like using a wok because it's big and I can stir all of my ingredients really easily. As soon as you see a wisp of smoke, it's hot enough, adding 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. I'm using corn oil today, and adding my eggs. When your wok is nicely seasoned, and when you add oil, when the wok is hot, things should not stick. You just want to cook your eggs until they are mostly cooked through, and then you can add it back to the bowl that you had the eggs in because you're just gonna put it back in the fried rice anyways, and it will cook through. Take a look at that. No sticking. Okay, adding the bacon. And we're gonna cook this through until the right doneness you like. I like mine kind of not too crispy, a little bit soft still, but you can cook it to the exact texture that you like. All right, I'm getting to the point of the texture I like. Fully cooked bacon, tender, but not super crispy. I'm gonna push that aside. I'm gonna remove some of this fat. We shouldn't use all of it, I suppose. Okay, I'm gonna leave the remaining bacon fat and adding my onions and the white and light green parts of the green onion right into the middle. I had turned down the heat to about a low. Let's turn it up a little bit. We want the onions to cook through, so maybe about 2 minutes, just until they are translucent. Okay, adding my garlic. And we only want to cook that for about 30 seconds, so until the garlic is fragrant. I wish you guys could smell this. So good. Mm-hmm. Bacon, onion, garlic, what's not to like? I am adding about 4 to 5 cups of leftover rice. And this is cold rice. I find that when it's leftover and cold, it's more dry and therefore can absorb more of the flavors of whatever you're cooking into the rice. When you use freshly cooked rice, the rice is moist, it doesn't absorb the flavor as much, and your rice will get mushy. So let's not do that. I'm just gonna move this around. And we want the rice to kind of separate into individual grains. And heat it through. I'm also adding 2 teaspoons of soy sauce and 2 teaspoons of oyster sauce. If you don't have oyster sauce, you can just substitute with soy sauce. So then that would be a total of 4 teaspoons of soy sauce. Just gonna stir this in. Try to break up some of these clumps of rice. And as the heat gets through the rice, it will just kind of naturally come apart. So that took about 3 minutes to just kind of get the rice separated from being in clumps. And now I'm going to add my eggs back in and break it up. And if you wanted to add veggies to this, you totally can too. I'm choosing not to. We're going to have veggies on the side. But you can add a handful of peas, you can wilt some spinach in there or lettuce, and that is it. I'm starting off with about half a pound of ground beef. I'm using lean ground beef, but you can use whatever you have. That's the great thing about fried rice is you can mix whatever you want into it and it'll still be really yummy. I'm adding about a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground white pepper, one teaspoon of soy sauce, and 1 teaspoon of oyster sauce. Just going to stir this up and let it marinate. I'm using these giant chopsticks again, and I'm not sure it's the best option. Now, I don't know if beef is one of those meats that I have to stir in one direction. Usually it's pork. So As long as you get it mixed really well, just so that the marinade kind of gets through it, I think that's sufficient. All right, so we're just gonna let that sit and marinate while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. It won't take long. We're using half an onion, and I'm just gonna slice it up. I like to slice it from top to bottom because I find that it holds its shape better than if you were to cut like this way. I also have 2 green onions. I'm gonna chop up the white part and put that in with the other onion. And the remaining green part I'm gonna set aside for the end of cooking. I am using iceberg lettuce today, and this is about 5 ounces, I think. And it's about 1/4 of a head of lettuce. And I'm just going to shred this. Ooh. All right, and we are also going to use 3 eggs that I'm going to lightly beat. Come on. Did you see that?
What did you do?
Just squirted egg at myself. Okay, yes, I'm just gonna lightly beat the eggs. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside. Okay, I'm using my wok today, turning the heat on to about medium-high. I don't know about you, but the cost of food is just going up so much, and we feel like we just need to make our food stretch a little bit further. And so using eggs as part of your protein, along with some meat, like I don't know how much I wouldn't normally use a whole pound of meat. That's a lot for fried rice, but half a pound of meat is not much. So once you see the wisp of smoke, add your oil, adding about 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. I'm using corn oil, and we're gonna do our eggs first. See, when your pan is hot, whether you're using a wok or a frying pan, before you add the oil, things don't stick. So you don't necessarily need a non-stick pan to do eggs. That's just my opinion. Okay, when it's mostly cooked, I'm just going to put it back in the same bowl that I had them. Oops. Okay, and adding another tablespoon of oil and adding my onions. The cooking process for fried rice goes really, really fast, which is why it's really necessary to have all your ingredients ready to go. Okay. Now I'm adding my beef. And I want the beef to be cooked through. The onions only took maybe 45 seconds. And it will continue to cook along with the meat. So you want to cook the beef until it's no longer pink inside and it's just starting to release some juices. That took about 2 to 3 minutes. Now I'm going to add 2 to 3 cups of leftover cold rice. It's better if the rice is left over because it's drier than freshly cooked rice. So it gives the chance for the rice to absorb all the flavors. We just want to break it up so that the rice is separating from the clumps. Okay, then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of soy sauce. And 2 teaspoons of oyster sauce. Let us stir. Okay, adding the eggs back in. I'm going to break it up. All right, I'm going to turn off the heat. Then with the residual heat, we're going to heat up the lettuce. We just want it to wilt. That's where you get the crispy texture from of the lettuce. So it's not super soggy, and we're going to add our green onions in at the same time. And that's it. Give this a toss. All right, I'm going to plate it. See how the lettuce is not fully cooked? It's still very much, starting to wilt, but we want that crispiness of the lettuce. I have half of an onion here, and we're just gonna finely chop it. The trick I learned is that if you keep the little butt on at the bottom, you can hold everything in place while you're chopping. I have 3 green onions, and lately I've been saving these bottoms, maybe not this one, to plant in my garden so that they will grow back. And they do. You can also actually, if you cut it a little bit, like maybe 2 or 3 inches up, you can put them in water and they'll grow back as well. So amazing. I'm going to keep the white parts of the green onion, maybe the light green parts too, adding it to that because I don't really like those pieces not cooked through. And then we'll just chop up this and set it aside. So here is the polarizing ingredient. Some people find it super fragrant, and others may find it stinky. It's called belacan. It is a shrimp paste. It comes in this cake form. Let me open it up for you. I mentioned belacan or shrimp paste in one of my videos. I can't even remember which one now. And oh my goodness, it is so smelly. And people were, well, someone suggested that, oh, maybe it's so expensive you can't afford it. This cake is essentially $1.69 for this whole thing. And for this particular dish, I only need 2 teaspoons. So you can only imagine how long this will last. And I've heard that it lasts forever. So even though people say that it's only going to last 6 to 12 months, I can't even imagine if you store it correctly, it'll last you forever.
This stuff is gonna last you through apocalyptic times.
Indeed. At least your food will be flavorful. 2 teaspoons. I don't know. I'm just eyeballing it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use about this much. Okay. Now, if you're going to store this, wrap it up tightly, double bag it before you put it in your fridge because it will penetrate everything and make everything else stinky, and you don't want that.
Belacan aromatic ice cubes, you don't want that.
Ugh. If this is your first time trying a shrimp paste, I would suggest using maybe just a teaspoon to see if you like it. But if you're familiar with the intensity of this flavor, then of course add more. All up to you. I'm also using 4 eggs that I'm going to lightly beat. Right, set that aside. I have 6 ounces of shrimp that I've already defrosted, taken the shells off and deveined, and I've also pat them dry so that they're not wet while cooking. Okay, we're gonna heat up the wok on medium-high heat to start with. If you don't have a wok, you can always use a large frying pan. That will do the trick, so long as you can hold all your ingredients. I like to use the wok because it's big and I can move all the ingredients around quickly. Once you see a wisp of smoke, add your oil, 1 tablespoon. I'm just going to do the eggs first. So when your wok or your frying pan is heated sufficiently before you add the oil, your cooking shouldn't stick. Okay, once your egg is mostly cooked, you can remove it. Actually, now I'm going to turn off the heat so I don't move fast enough. Turning it back on, adding a little bit more oil, get the shrimp going. You can also cut these down to make them smaller so that they're more bite-sized. We're just going to leave them whole. And also with the shrimp, you just want them to be mostly cooked through. Again, turning off my stove, get the shrimp out. I'm going to put it on top of my eggs because we're going to add all of that back in later. Okay, turning my wok back on, adding another tablespoon of oil. So you probably use about 2 to 3 tablespoons. I'm gonna get my onions going. All right, and we're gonna throw our piece of belacan in there. I'm gonna break it up, heat it through. And this is going to take about 3 to 5 minutes of cooking because you want that belacan to kind of become more fragrant, as if it's not fragrant enough. If you have good ventilation, now is the time to turn it on if it wasn't already on. And this will help determine whether or not you enjoy the smell or not. It's kind of like blooming a spice. You know, in Indian cooking, you should fry up your aromatics before anything else and all those spices. And that's to help those spices maximize their flavor. And I think belacan is kind of the same kind of concept. You want to heat it through, cook it up so that you get ultimate fragrance. All right, make sure all those chunks are like melted into the bottom of the pan. You don't want to, well, I wouldn't anyways, want to bite into a chunk of the shrimp paste. Okay, I'm adding my leftover rice. I've got about 4 cups of cooked leftover rice that's been cooled. And you want to use cold rice for this, leftover rice, because if it's wet rice, your fried rice is going to be soggy, and that doesn't make for good fried rice. It makes good for soggy rice. So you want it to be cold and dry so that it absorbs all the flavor from whatever ingredients you're using. Just want to cook this through until the grains kind of break up. I'm going to turn down the heat a little bit, maybe to a medium. Okay, adding a tablespoon of dark soy sauce. And if you don't have dark soy sauce, you can use regular soy. The dark soy helps to give the color, the darker brown that we want. Tablespoon of oyster sauce. Sorry, it's a new bottle, so 1 tablespoon of this. And for some heat, we're gonna use the chili sauce to give it some heat, about ½ teaspoon. But if you don't want it spicy, that's fine, you don't have to add it. You can also use just fresh chilies cut up, or you can use some dried chili flakes. Well, you can see that red coming through the chili oil. All right, adding the shrimp and the eggs back in. I'm gonna chop up the egg. All right, turning off the heat and throw in our green onions. Stir that around, and that is it, guys. Super fragrant shrimp and egg fried rice, Malaysian style. All right, this makes a lot, guys. This is probably good for 3 to 4 servings. This will be dinner tonight. We're making some veggies on the side.
Fried rice for days.
Oh my goodness, that's just half of it. Check it. So I'm just gonna chop up my vegetables, and I am using about 1/3 to half of a large onion. I'm gonna cut into small pieces. And the smaller you cut them, the faster it cooks. So if you don't want to wait around for your onion to like soften up, then cut them smaller. But it's all, you know, if you like them big chunks, that's all up to you as well. Texture is huge in experiencing food, so cut them up to the size that you like. No rules. I'm also using 2 stalks of a green onion that I'm going to chop up. And again, I'm just cutting them up small. And this will be used as kind of garnish at the end. But more than garnish, it goes right into the dish. I'm using 3 cloves of garlic, but you can use as little or as much as you want. I'm just gonna smash it up a little bit so that it's easier to chop up. You can always use a garlic press as well. I usually do, but this recipe is so fast that I have time to chop up my garlic. I have 3 large eggs that I'm going to lightly beat. And I have 4 ounces of shrimp that I've already deveined and deshelled, and also rinsed and pat dry. And you want them dry so that they will sizzle in the wok instead of steam. I'm just gonna heat up my wok on medium high. We're gonna cook the egg first and then take it out and then continue with the rest of the cooking. If you don't have a wok, you can always use a large frying pan. People ask about my wok all the time, but I picked it up in Chinatown like over 20 years ago. It's handcrafted, stainless steel. Unfortunately, I don't have a recommendation of where to get it. It's hot enough when you see some smoke coming up, and you want to add about 1 tablespoon of oil, vegetable oil, and then pour in your egg. doesn't take long. And right when it's almost done cooking, take it out, put it back in the bowl. And when we add it back to the fried rice, it's gonna cook some more. Okay, at this point, we're gonna add, oh, you know what we're gonna do, sorry. Turn down the heat to low. I'm gonna add another tablespoon of oil. And then we're gonna get our garlic going, but we don't want that garlic to burn, which is why we're cooking it at a low temperature. I'm gonna put that right into the oil. Stir that around. Then we're gonna get our shrimp in there. Just gonna cook it until the shrimp is orange, and we're gonna take it all out. And again, it doesn't have to be cooked all the way through because we're gonna finish cooking the shrimp when we add it back to the rice. Okay, that's it. Take it out. I'm gonna get our onions in there. And this will take about a minute or two. And turn the heat back up a little bit. Okay, I have 2 cups of leftover rice. Just break it up a little bit. So it was in the fridge, so it's a bit clumpy. But leftover rice really is the best rice to use for fried rice. Because it's a little bit drier, it can absorb the flavors that you're adding in. Using just cooked rice just doesn't give you the same texture and absorbance, I guess, of all the flavors, and then you end up with soggy rice. Okay, we're just gonna leave it to kind of heat through right now. Make sure it doesn't burn at the bottom. It shouldn't if it's on a low enough heat. And it just takes a few minutes, it doesn't take long. Personally, I don't like to add everything into my fried rice. I kind of use whatever's left over, like maybe 1 protein up to 2 protein, like maybe if I had leftover, say some pork and I had some shrimp, I might put them together. But always have egg, always have onion and rice, and then my seasoning, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and you have to have a vegetable. So I always use peas that are frozen in the freezer, and it makes for a very colorful meal. Adding 2 teaspoons of soy sauce and 2 teaspoons of oyster sauce. Okay, adding about a handful of peas. Wow! So about half a cup. Okay, we're heating the peas through. Okay, adding the eggs back in, adding the shrimp back in. Don't forget the garlic that's in there as well. Break up the egg a little bit. Toss it some more. Okay, so that's another minute. You want to make sure that the shrimp is also completely cooked through. Adding all the green onion now. And then at this point, you can turn off your heat. And that's it. Oh my goodness. It smells and looks so good. All right, oh my goodness. And just one last thing. A pinch of ground white pepper, and that will just add just a little bit of a kick, and that's it.